For 20 years, my father was a ghost. One day, he simply vanished. No warning, no note, no explanation. At first, we thought something terrible had happened. My mother called the police, filed a missing person report, and spent countless nights crying into the silence he left behind. But as days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years, the truth settled in like an ache that never quite faded. He had abandoned us. My mother, Evelyn, never spoke his name again. She took down every photo, burned his old clothes, and refused to let us dwell on the past. "We move forward," she'd say whenever my sister Sarah or I asked about him. "We don't live in the past." But I did. In some ways, I never left that moment. The day my father disappeared. And then out of nowhere, he came back. It started with a phone call. An unknown number lit up my screen late one evening. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. I pressed the phone to my ear, expecting a telemarketer or maybe a wrong number. But the voice that came through sent a shiver down my spine. "Michael," he said, his voice rough, aged. "It's me." I knew that voice. Even after 2 decades, I recognized it instantly. My father. I didn't say a word. My breath caught in my throat. My fingers tightened around the phone. "I need to see you," he continued, desperation creeping into his tone. "Please. I can explain everything." I should have hung up. I should have told him to go to hell. But against every instinct, every ounce of anger I carried for 20 years, I found myself asking the only question that mattered. "Why did you leave?" Silence. Then comma barely above a whisper. He said, "Because I had to." That was how it began, the unraveling of everything I thought I knew. I didn't sleep that night. After hanging up, I just sat there, staring at the phone, replaying his voice over and over in my head. It had been 20 years. 20 years of absence, of silence, of birthdays missed, of my mother struggling to keep us afloat, of never having a father to teach me the things fathers are supposed to teach their sons. And now, just like that, he wanted back in. I should have ignored it. I should have told him to stay gone. But I couldn't. The next morning, I called Sarah. My little sister had only been 9 when he disappeared, old enough to remember him, but too young to understand the weight of his absence. Unlike me, she had never carried the same anger. She had questions, sure, but not the same raw, burning resentment that had settled in my chest all these years. "He called you?" she asked, her voice quiet, cautious. "Last night?" "He wants to meet." A pause. "Are you going?" I exhaled, rubbing my temple. "I don't know, but if I do, I want you there." Another pause, longer this time. Then, finally, "Okay." It was only after I ended the call that I realized something strange. When Sarah spoke, there was no shock in her voice, no disbelief. Like she already knew. We met him that evening at a small diner just outside the city. I had chosen the place on purpose. Neutral ground, somewhere public, somewhere safe. If this turned out to be a mistake, I wanted an easy exit. Sarah and I arrived first. She was nervous, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve, glancing at the door every few seconds. I wasn't nervous. I was furious. And then he walked in. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize him. The man who sat down across from us wasn't the father I remembered. His hair was grayer, his face thinner, lines of age and worry carved deep into his skin. He looked tired, worn down. "Michael," he said, looking at me first, then turning to Sarah, softer. "Sarah, you look so much like your mother." She swallowed hard, blinking fast, but said nothing. I leaned back in my seat, arms crossed. "Why are you here?" he hesitated, rubbing a hand over his face. "I know I have no right to ask anything from either of you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to understand. I didn't leave because I wanted to." I scoffed. "Then why did you?" His eyes flickered toward the window. For a split second, I saw something there. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "Because I was in danger," he said finally. "And if I had stayed, so were you." The words hung between us, thick and heavy. Sarah was the first to speak. "Danger from what?" He hesitated again, glancing around the diner like he was expecting someone to be watching. "It's complicated," he said, his voice lower now. "But I wasn't who you thought I was back then. I was involved with some people, bad people. And when things went south, I had to disappear. I didn't buy it, not for a second. You could have told us. You could have called, written, anything, but you didn't." "I couldn't," he insisted. "The more distance I put between us, the safer you were." I shook my head. laughing bitterly. So now what? It's been 20 years and suddenly it's safe? You expect us to believe that? His jaw tightened. No, it's not safe. It never was. A chill ran down my spine. Sarah frowned. Then why are you here? For the first time, his composure cracked. He ran a hand through his graying hair, exhaling shakily. Because they found me. Silence. Sarah and I exchanged a glance. Who found you? I asked carefully. His eyes met mine. The people I ran from. My pulse quickened. There was something in the way he said it. An urgency. A deep-rooted panic that set every instinct in me on edge. And then he leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. They know about you. I went cold. The sounds of the diner, plates clinking, low conversations, the distant hum of a radio, faded into nothing. My father's words echoed in my head, sinking like stones into my gut. They know about you. I had spent 20 years believing he was just a selfish bastard who walked out on us. But this was something else entirely. Sarah was the first to recover. What do you mean they know about us? She asked, her voice tight. My father glanced toward the window again, scanning the street outside. His fingers tapped anxiously against the table. For years, I stayed off the grid. I changed my name, moved from city to city. But a few months ago, someone found me, sent a message. What kind of message? I asked, my throat dry. He swallowed hard. A photo. Of you. The world tilted for a second. My stomach knotted. My hands clenched into fists. Sarah inhaled sharply. You're lying. I wish I was. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket, sliding it across the table. See for yourself. I hesitated before picking it up, unfolding it slowly. And there it was. A grainy printed image of me standing outside my apartment. Taken from a distance. I felt sick. That was taken 2 weeks ago? My father said quietly. They've been watching. I slammed the photo onto the table. Who are they? My voice was sharp, demanding. He hesitated. People I used to work for. You keep saying that, but it means nothing to me, I snapped. What did you do? What did you get involved in? He exhaled slowly, rubbing his hands together. I was part of something. A scheme. Fraud mostly. Money laundering, fake investments. It was supposed to be easy. But then someone got greedy. Things got messy. One night, a man ended up dead. His voice cracked on that last word. Sarah went rigid. You killed someone? No. His eyes were wide, pleading. But I was there. I was supposed to take the fall. But I ran instead, and I thought... He shook his head. I thought I was safe. I stared at him, rage and disbelief churning inside me. So you disappeared, left us behind, and now they want payback. His silence was all the confirmation I needed. I pushed back my chair, standing abruptly. We're done here, Sarah blinked. Michael? No, I shook my head. We don't owe him anything. He left us, and now he's bringing his mess back into our lives. I turned to my father, my voice cold. Stay away from us. His face twisted with desperation. Michael, please, you don't understand. They're coming, and they don't leave loose ends. I didn't care. I grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her with me. Let's go. As we stepped out into the night, I half expected him to chase after us. He didn't. He just sat there, watching us leave. His expression haunted. But as we walked to my car, a strange feeling crawled up my spine. An itch in the back of my mind. A black SUV was parked across the street. And inside, someone was watching. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Just a coincidence. A random car on a random street. But as we drove away, my eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror. My pulse hammering. The SUV didn't move. Still, the unease clung to me. Sarah was quiet beside me, her hands folded in her lap. I could tell she was processing everything, trying to fit 20 years of unanswered questions into the reality we had just walked into. Finally, she spoke. What if he's telling the truth? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Does it matter? She turned to me, her expression unreadable. If he's in danger, that means we are too. I exhaled sharply, my jaw clenching. He's a liar, Sarah. He lied when he left, and he's lying now. He's trying to drag us into something, and I won't let that happen. But the photo? Her voice was quieter now, laced with something close to fear. I didn't have an answer for that. We pulled up to Sarah's apartment. She hesitated before getting out, chewing her lip. Just be careful, okay? I forced a nod. You too. As she disappeared into the building, I sat there for a long moment, staring at the streetlights, my father's words replaying in my head. They know about you. I shook it off and drove home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt too loud, every shadow too long. My apartment, which had always been my safe space, suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. I kept checking the windows, expecting to see that black SUV parked outside. But it wasn't there. By morning, I convinced myself I had overreacted. I went through my usual routine, showered, got dressed, tried to focus on work. But the feeling of being watched never quite left me. And then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long second before answering. I didn't get a chance to say anything. Heavy breathing. Then a click. The line went dead. A chill ran down my spine. I swallowed hard, forcing logic into my brain. Prank call, spam, anything but what it feels like. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't over. And my father had been right about one thing. They were watching. I sat there, phone still in my hand, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The silence in my apartment suddenly felt deafening. This wasn't just paranoia. Someone had sent that photo. Someone had made that call. Someone was out there. I forced myself to breathe, think. What now? I needed answers, real answers. Not my father's cryptic warnings, not half-truths, wrapped in excuses. If he was telling the truth, if we were actually in danger, I had to know what I was dealing with. And I knew exactly where to start. An hour later, I was sitting in a small, dimly lit office at the NYPD's downtown precinct. Across from me was Detective Harris, mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of man who looked like he had seen too much and trusted too little. "You're telling me your father disappeared 20 years ago?" he said, leaning back in his chair. "And now he's back, claiming people are after him?" I nodded. "And me, and my sister." Harris rubbed his jaw, thinking. "What's he running from?" I hesitated, then told him everything, at least everything my father had said, the fraud, the dead man, the people he owed. I slid the photo across the table. "Whoever these people are, they know where I live." Harris studied the image, his face unreadable. Then, without a word, he got up and left the room. I sat there, tension coiling in my gut. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. When he finally returned, his face was different. Tighter, more serious. "What?" I asked, my stomach sinking. He tossed a thin folder onto the desk. "Your father didn't just run from some low-level con job." I flipped the folder open. Inside was an old newspaper article, yellowed with age. "Local financier declared missing. Ties to organized crime suspected." I scanned the text, my eyes catching on keywords. Fraud, wire transfers, money laundering. But the part that stopped me cold was at the bottom. Authorities believe Patrick Carter may have been involved in the disappearance of a former associate, Daniel Ruiz, who vanished the same year Carter did. Ruiz was last seen entering Carter's office late one evening. He was never seen again. I swallowed hard. "You think my father?" Harris watched me carefully. "Ruiz's body was never found, but a lot of people think your father killed him and ran." I shook my head. "No, he said he didn't." Harris snorted. "Yeah? He also said he had no choice but to abandon you. How'd that work out?" My hands clenched into fists. "Here's the thing," Harris continued, tapping the folder. "The people your father ran from, they weren't just criminals, they were connected. People with money, influence. The kind of people who don't forget a debt, especially when it's paid in blood." I felt sick. "So you're saying they found him?" "I'm saying if he's back, then yeah, they found him." A cold realization settled over me. "And now they're coming for us." Harris didn't answer. He didn't have to. I left the station in a daze. My father hadn't just been a liar. He had been part of something much darker than I ever imagined. I needed to talk to him. Now. But as I pulled out my phone to call him, a text popped up. Unknown number. "You should have left it alone." I barely had time to process it before my apartment buzzer rang. I turned, my stomach knotting. Through the glass door, a man in a dark suit was waiting. Expression blank. Hands in his pockets. Watching me. Waiting. And I suddenly knew, without a doubt, this wasn't just about my father anymore. It was about me. I stood frozen, my heart hammering in my chest. The man didn't move. He just stood there, watching me through the glass. I forced myself to breathe. Think. What do I do? My first instinct was to run, But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I reached into my pocket, gripping my phone like a lifeline. I pulled up the keypad, ready to dial 911 dot. Then the man smiled, a slow, knowing smile, as if he could see exactly what I was thinking dot. And then he turned and walked away. I didn't relax, not even a little. My hands were clammy, my mind racing. This wasn't some random threat. This was a message, a warning dot. They weren't coming dot. They were already here. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove. No destination, just moving. I needed time to think. Every time I stopped at a red light, I checked my mirrors, scanned the sidewalks dot. By the time I finally pulled into a motel parking lot on the outskirts of the city, exhaustion had settled deep into my bones. I locked the doors, drew the blinds, and sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hands. I had one call to make dot. My father answered on the first ring. They found me, I said, my voice tight dot silence. Then, where are you? Somewhere safe. It was a lie. Nowhere felt safe anymore. Who are these people? He sighed. It's complicated. Then, uncomplicate it. A long pause. Then finally, they're the reason I ran. The reason I had to disappear. I gritted my teeth. You didn't have to do anything. You chose to leave. You chose to let Mom struggle, to let us think you were dead. And now, after 20 years, you just come back and drop this in our laps? I didn't want to, he said quietly, but I had no choice. I laughed bitterly. That's your favorite excuse, isn't it? He didn't argue. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to keep my anger in check. They know about me, Dad. About Sarah. They sent me a photo, a text, and tonight someone was waiting outside my apartment. His breathing hitched. Michael, what did you do? I demanded. Did you kill that man? No. His voice was sharp, immediate. I swear to you, I didn't. But I know who did. I froze. Who? Another pause. The man who killed Daniel Ruiz is the same man coming after us now. My grip tightened on the phone. And you've been running from him for 20 years. Yes, my mind raced. If my father was telling the truth, if he had witnessed the murder but didn't commit it, then he had been a loose end all these years. And now, by reaching out to us, he had made us loose ends too. You need to disappear again, I said, my voice low. For good this time. I tried, he murmured. It didn't work. A sinking feeling settled in my gut. Dot. Then he said the words that changed everything. They found Sarah. I shot up from the bed. What? She's not answering her phone, he said. I tried calling twice. Nothing. My pulse spiked. I fumbled for my own phone, switching to Sarah's contact. The call rang. Once. Twice. Voicemail. Panic slammed into me like a fist. I was already running out the door. The drive to Sarah's apartment felt endless. Every red light, every slow-moving car felt like an obstacle, an enemy. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I tried calling her again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. My stomach was in knots. I forced myself to think logically. There could be a simple explanation. Maybe she'd fallen asleep. Maybe her phone was on silent. Maybe. I didn't believe any of it. I pulled into her street too fast, my tires screeching against the pavement. The second I saw her building, my blood turned to ice. The front door was open. Not just unlocked, open, a dark void leading into the lobby. I parked haphazardly, half on the curb, and ran inside. My breath came in ragged gasps as I took the stairs two at a time. Her door was shut. But the lock was broken, the frame splintered. I shoved the door open. Sarah? Silence. The apartment was a mess. The coffee table was overturned, the couch cushions scattered. A lamp had been knocked over, glass shattered across the floor. My gut twisted. This wasn't a robbery. This was a struggle. Then I saw her phone. Face down on the carpet. Screen cracked. I swallowed down the rising panic and forced myself to think. Look for clues. Look for anything. And then I saw it. A note. Just a single scrap of paper, folded neatly and left on the counter. I grabbed it, my hands shaking as I unfolded it. Your father owes a debt. Come settle it. Or she disappears as next. No name, no signature, no instructions. Just a message, a warning. A demand. Sarah was gone. And I was running out of time. I called my father back before I was even out the door. He answered immediately. They took her. Silence. Then, a barely audible, no. They left a note, I said. No details, just that you owe them. I do, he said, his voice hollow. And now they're using her to make sure I pay. I swallowed back my rage. Then start talking. Right now. Who are they? What do they want? A deep sigh. The man in charge, his name is Vincent Morello. The name sent a shiver down my spine. Morello wasn't just some criminal. He was a name. A name people spoke in hushed voices. A name that meant money, power, violence. A name tied to bodies that were never found. My father continued. He ran the operation. Ruiz, he was trying to get out, take some money with him. Morello found out. I was there that night. I saw what happened. And when Morello realized that, I ran. I squeezed the steering wheel so hard I thought it might snap. And now they're using Sarah to get to you. Yes, my blood boiled. Then you better have a plan. There was a pause. Then, I do. 20 minutes later, I met my father in a desolate parking lot just outside the city. He looked older than I remembered, tired, defeated. But there was something else in his eyes too, something that hadn't been there before, determination. We don't have much time, he said. Morello doesn't keep people alive for long. I glared at him. Then let's go get her, he nodded. I think I know where they have her. I wasn't sure if I trusted him. But right now, I didn't have a choice. We drove in silence, the city lights blurring past as we headed toward the edge of town. My hands were still shaking, but I kept them steady on the wheel. Every minute that passed was a minute Sarah didn't have. She's still alive, I muttered, more to myself than to my father. She is, he said. For now. I shot him a look. Not helping, he exhaled sharply. I'm just being honest. Morello doesn't play games. He's using her to get to me, and once he has what he wants, she becomes a liability. I gritted my teeth. Then we make sure he never gets what he wants. My father didn't reply. The place he led me to was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, one of those buildings that had probably been something legitimate decades ago, but now sat as nothing more than a forgotten shell. I killed the engine a block away. The air was thick with tension. There, my father said, pointing. That's where they take her. I scanned the building. A single light flickered near the entrance. There were 2 cars parked outside, blacked-out sedans, expensive, the kind that screamed money and muscle. What's the plan? I asked My father hesitated. We go in, we get her. We get out. I let out a humorless laugh. Brilliant. And when the armed men inside stop us? We're not walking in the front door, he said. There's a side entrance. I've been here before. I stared at him. Of course you have. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. We crept toward the building, staying low, moving fast. Every nerve in my body was on fire. If we were caught, we were dead. We reached the side entrance. My father tested the handle. Locked. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small tool, and within seconds, the door clicked open. I should have been surprised. I wasn't. The inside of the warehouse was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of oil and dust. Footsteps echoed somewhere in the distance, low voices. Then, a muffled cry. Sarah. I felt my stomach drop. We followed the sound, moving deeper into the shadows. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My father motioned for me to stop, peering around a stack of crates. Then he tensed. I followed his gaze and felt my blood run cold. Sarah was there. Tied to a chair. A man stood beside her. Vincent Morello. And he was looking directly at us. Ah, he said, smiling. I was wondering when you'd show up. A dozen men stepped out of the shadows, guns drawn. It was a trap. My breath caught in my throat. My father went rigid beside me. We had walked right into it. Morello's men moved fast, surrounding us before we could even think about running. Cold metal pressed against the back of my skull. A gun, steady, unforgiving. Drop it! A voice growled. It took me a second to realize they were talking to my father. He had pulled a small pistol from inside his jacket, but it was useless now. He let it clatter to the floor. Smart, Morello said. His voice was smooth, almost amused. You always were good at knowing when you were beat, Patrick. I turned to Sarah, my stomach twisting. Her wrists were bound to the chair, a strip of duct tape over her mouth, but her eyes were wild, desperate. She was alive. For now, Morello followed my gaze and smirked. Beautiful girl, he said. I was thinking maybe I keep her. A little insurance? Rage flared through me like a wildfire. My fists clenched at my sides. My father spoke first. You don't need her, he said, voice tight. This is between us. Morello turned his attention back to him. That's the problem with you, Patrick. You always think you get a say. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a knife, and turned it over in his hands like a man deciding what to do next. "I gave you 20 years, he said. "You disappeared. You thought you were safe. But you knew how this was going to end, didn't you?" I watched my father's jaw tighten. He did know, Dot. "And yet he still let us get dragged into it." Morello stepped closer. "So tell me, Patrick," he murmured, "why shouldn't I just kill you right now?" Silence. Then my father spoke. "Because I can give you something better." I frowned, shooting him a look. What the hell was he talking about? Morello raised a brow. "Oh? And what's that?" My father took a slow breath. "A name." I went still. Morello's expression darkened. "Careful now," he said, Dot. But my father didn't hesitate. "The man who tipped off the feds 20 years ago. The reason you had to clean up that Ruiz mess?" He leaned in slightly. "I know who it was." The room shifted. I could feel it. Morello's grip on the knife tightened. His men exchanged uncertain glances. "You're lying," Morello said, but there was something wary in his voice now. My father smiled. "Am I?" A long silence stretched between them. Then, finally, Morello sighed. "All right," he said. "Let's hear it." My father hesitated. "Not here. Not now. But if you let them go, Sarah, Michael, I'll give you what you want." I stiffened. "Dad," Morello chuckled. "Oh, Patrick, you're still playing the self-sacrificing father?" He shook his head. "It's cute, really, but let's be honest, you're out of options." He turned to one of his men. "Take the girl." "No." My voice was raw, desperate. Sarah's muffled scream cut through the air as a man grabbed her, yanking her chair backward. I moved without thinking. Pure instinct, I lunged, straight at Morello. Everything happened at once. I crashed into him, knocking him backwards. The knife clattered to the floor. Shouts exploded around me. A fist slammed into my ribs. I didn't know whose, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Gunfire erupted. My father shouted something, but the chaos swallowed his words. I scrambled for the knife. My fingers closed around the handle just as someone yanked me backward. Another gunshot. Then a sickening, wet gasp. I turned and saw my father fall. Patrick collapsed onto the cold concrete, a crimson stain blooming across his shirt. For a moment, time froze. The gunfire, the shouting, the chaos, all of it blurred into nothing but the sight of my father gasping for breath, his fingers twitching as he reached for something unseen. Then reality snapped back. Morello was still moving, pushing himself off the ground, reaching for the gun that had skidded across the floor. His men were disoriented, some still scrambling for cover. But I had no time to think, no time to hesitate. I grabbed the fallen pistol. I wasn't a killer. I had never fired a gun at a person in my life. But as I saw Morello's fingers close around his weapon, his cold eyes locking onto mine, I knew there was no other choice. I pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the warehouse, sharp and final. Morello staggered, his expression twisting in something like disbelief. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest, blood seeping between his fingers. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Then he collapsed. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I turned, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Sarah. Where was Sarah? She was still bound, eyes wide, shaking. One of Morello's men had his gun trained on her, but his hands were trembling. The power dynamic had shifted. Their leader was dead, and without him, they had no direction. I took a slow step forward, leveling my gun at him. Put it down. The man hesitated. Then, without a word, he let the weapon drop. One by one, the others did the same. It was over. I ran to Sarah, ripping the duct tape from her mouth, working at the ropes around her wrists. She threw herself into my arms, her body shaking violently. "Michael," she gasped. I thought, "I know," I whispered. "It's over. You're safe." But when I turned to my father, I knew the same couldn't be said for him. He was lying on his back, his breathing shallow. His lips moved, but no sound came. I dropped to my knees beside him, pressing my hands to his wound, as if I could stop the inevitable. No, don't do this," I said, my voice breaking. "You don't get to leave again." His eyes found mine. There was something in them. Regret. "I tried," he whispered. "To fix it? To protect you?" I swallowed hard. "You didn't. You just ran." His fingers twitched, like he wanted to reach for me but didn't have the strength. I know. Then, with one last shuddering breath, Patrick Carter was gone. The police arrived minutes later. Detective Harris was among them. his face a mix of shock and grim satisfaction. Morello's empire had finally collapsed, and the man himself was nothing more than a lifeless body on a warehouse floor. The surviving members of his crew were arrested. Some tried to make deals, spilling everything they knew. It didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Years of criminal activity, extortion, money laundering, and murder. And my father? His past came to light in the worst way possible. The fraud, the cover-ups, the choices that had led us all here. But in the end, he did something right. He died fighting for something. For us, Sarah and I sat in the precinct for hours, answering questions, giving statements. The weight of it all crushed down on me, but through it, there was something else, relief. For the first time in 20 years, Morello was gone. He couldn't hurt anyone else. And neither could my father's mistakes. Weeks passed. The headlines were everywhere. Crime boss Vincent Morello killed in warehouse shootout. Long fugitive Patrick Carter identified as key witness in crime syndicate takedown. Surviving Carter family breaks silence on their father's past. Evelyn didn't cry when I told her the news. She just sat there staring at the floor, nodding like she had already made peace with it long before we had. He never really came back, she said finally. Not in the way that mattered. She was right. Sarah and I went through his things. He had nothing. No real possessions, no home, just a string of fake identities and motel receipts. A life spent running. I found an old photograph tucked into his wallet. It was of us, me, Sarah, Mom, before he disappeared, before everything fell apart. He had carried it with him all these years. It didn't change anything. But it meant something. The last time I saw my father, it was at a grave with no name. A simple marker, no flowers, no ceremony. Just the end of a story that should have ended decades ago. I stood there for a long time, the wind cold against my face. I don't forgive you, I said finally, but I won't run from this, from my past, from the truth. I turned and walked away. As I left, I felt something shift, like a weight lifting. For the first time in my life, I was free.